everyone, welcome to my channel. I'm Rebecca. Today I want to speak to you a little bit about setting boundaries with the spirit world. Now, we often talk about in our own human experience about setting boundaries with other people so that we're not doing things that we're not comfortable with, things that morally or ethically we do not agree with, and also so that we are not using all of our time, perhaps expending our energy and spreading ourselves too thin so that we wear ourselves out. And it's become something that's very big, especially in the spiritual community, to talk about setting boundaries. And we talk about setting boundaries with humans. It's become a very big thing in the last couple of years, I've noticed. However, we don't see much about setting boundaries with the spirit world, which is also a really important thing. If you work with spirit, or perhaps, if you are new to working with spirit and, like I was when I first started, I've been connected to spirit all of my life. But once I actually decided to be of service to spirit full time, it can become something that is, it's so interesting and you're learning so much, and you can be open to it all of the time and wanting to do all of this work and connecting into the spirit world all of the time. And it just exhausts you. It's not a good idea. But also with the spirit world, and I don't really have this issue in the work that I do over on my other channel, The Words of the Wild, with my working with nature and animal communication. I don't have this issue with boundary overstepping, which is quite interesting. It seems that it's kind of a human trait, and in the animal kingdom, even in the animal kingdom upon the earth, and also working with spirit in the animal kingdom and in nature, that doesn't ever really happen. They seem to have like this sixth sense of spending time with you, and not encroaching too much on your space or taking too much of your energy, which is quite interesting to me. But with humans, both on the earth and in the spirit world, it is important that we set boundaries. And spirit don't get offended. That's the first thing I want to say. They won't be offended if you say to them, not right now. If you're focusing on something and you have a spirit that really wants to interact, but you just don't have, the emotional bandwidth and the mental capacity in that moment to be doing that work, you can just say to them, I acknowledge you. I understand that you would like to work with me, but right now I'm unable to do that. Please, could we just ask you to step back for a moment so that we can revisit this when I am more able to do this. And they won't be offended. But also I think it's important setting boundaries to make sure you're comfortable with how your journey is progressing, because you don't want to take on too many things at once. It's almost like a little roadmap with your spiritual journey is the same as your journey upon the earth. You're learning new things, you're understanding. And as you learn new things, you need time to digest them. So with different techniques, if you're communicating with spirit, different techniques and understanding how and what works for you in your practice. But also, don't rush, because you want to be authentic. It's the main thing, is to always be authentic, always working in truth. And I had an encounter a while back. It was probably, I can't think when it was. I'm sure I have it written down somewhere, because it was an experience that absolutely just floored me, despite the fact that I had already decided that I was working with spirit. I woke up one evening. I'd been asleep I hadn't even been asleep for that long. I'd been asleep for about an hour. And at the time I wasn't sure what woke me up, but now I know what it was that woke me up. I woke up to a spirit of quite a controversial figure sitting on my bed. And in that moment, even though, you would think working with spirit, it wouldn't faze you, in my human experience, and I had just woken up and seeing, you know, someone that doesn't live in your house, and also someone that you know to be quite a controversial figure, sitting on your bed just looking at you, waiting for you to wake up, is quite terrifying. And I remember in that moment just being like, no, what are you doing here? You're not welcome. And kind of, you know, it was probably an overreaction, but just, I was so shocked and a little bit afraid, and just sending them on their way. And I do remember their energy coming back a little while later and kind of apologising. It wasn't their intention to scare me, and they realised that they had overstepped my boundaries, because, you know, when I'm working, but when I'm not working my own time, my energy is closed down and it's non-negotiable. There is, you know, you can make me aware if you would like to work with me, but you don't step into my, you know, my space, especially not to frighten me. And so they did come back, and they, you know, they did apologize. And it's somebody that does want to be channeled and to work with them. And this was a while ago that this happened. And where I am on my journey right now, I'm not quite ready. I'm still not quite ready. I'm getting there. I'm getting closer to wanting to talk with them, but I do have a little bit of apprehension, and that's just myself. Despite the fact I am quite intrigued and I do want to talk to them, there's just something that isn't, I'm not quite there yet. And so I think it's important that you go at your own pace when you are working, you know, working for spirit and with spirit. But it's one of the things that I kind of think of, and I remember back to that night and being a little bit terrified and kind of shooing them away. But it's important, it's very important to have boundaries, not only in the human world, but also working with spirit. They need to have boundaries, because otherwise it's not healthy for you. You will be emotionally and mentally, physically drained from doing the work, because it is incredibly taxing. Working on an energy level is very different to how we go about our daily lives as a human. So you're really utilizing parts of your brain that you don't normally utilize, and you're connecting at a much higher vibrational level, which is, I guess it's a bit like when astronauts go into space. It's very taxing on their bodies. So you don't want to be open to doing this all of the time, because it is tiring. And also, you don't want it to detract from your human experience. If you're constantly living within this spirit world, as it were, you're not actually focusing on your human existence, and that's incredibly important. You really need to have a balance, and, you know, everything we talk about relating to life is all about balance. So yeah, this is just a little kind of just a little insight into setting boundaries within spiritual work as well. And I think it's important, because you can also find something that's quite difficult to deal with. You can find that if you have friends or family that are very interested in the work that you do, you can find yourself kind of working when you're not working. And it's not a malicious thing. I'm sure that the people that sometimes will say, you know, oh, you know, energetically, what do you pick up about this? Or, you know, can you tell me how my dog or my cat is feeling right now? It's not done in a malicious way, but it can also be something that, if you're not careful, can be something that you get relied upon for doing, and you're working when you're not actually working. So if you are on a spiritual pathway and you are working with spirit, I would say that it's very important to set specific time for when you are choosing to work. And, you know, you don't have to make some great big loud announcement, but just let your guides know and say, you know, I'm better when I'm doing this work in the evenings, and I would like to be open to communication from you at these times. Or, you know, I prefer to work a little bit in the day, but after 6 p.m. I don't want to have any more interactions. And it doesn't mean that it's completely stopped, because what I found is, like I said, if an animal or if a human spirit wants to interact, they may, outside of these times, still kind of make you aware of their presence. And they can be like little subtle signs, like I talk about on my other channel with the animal kingdom. Quite often when an animal wants to be channeled, I will keep seeing that animal in different versions. You know, I might see a photo, I might watch something on YouTube and an ad comes up featuring that animal, or you'll have these subtle signs, and that's like a little hello, I'm here. I'd like to interact, but they're not encroaching on your personal space. You're still having that moment to say, okay, I choose to sit down and do this work then. So I would say, if you are working in any kind of spiritual capacity, spiritual, you know, they call it spiritual hygiene. It's very important, making sure that you are working when you are, you know, when you're on good form. So if I don't feel well, even if I have a headache, I won't sit down to do this kind of work, because you're not 100%, and it's even more taxing on you then. So you need to be 100% feeling great and you know, ready to be of service to spirit. But it's also maintaining healthy boundaries between your work and your human experience, your personal time. So I'll leave that with you, but it's just something to think about, that, you know, as fascinating as this work is, and it's incredibly rewarding as well, it's beautiful to be able to, for me, it's wonderful to be able to connect people more deeply with the animal kingdom, so that they can understand, especially with their own animal companions, and to bring messages of, you know, love, and to share wisdom from humans that have crossed over. It's beautiful and it's rewarding, but, you know, just like you wouldn't stay in the office for 24 hours a day just doing your day job, it's the same thing. Just because it's a different way of working, it still requires a lot of energy, and you don't want to kind of expend all of your energy so that you have nothing for yourself, because then you're missing your own human experience. So leaving that with you today, it's just really a little insight and a little reminder about spiritual hygiene, setting boundaries with the spirit world. And thank you for listening. If you are interested in my animal communication content, pop on over to my other YouTube channel, which is The Words of the Wild. You can also find me on Instagram, where I have little snippets of both sides, the human experience and more wisdom from the animal kingdom. So thank you for being here, and I will look forward to speaking to you again soon.